Hi everyone, welcome to the AFI breakout session. I am Meslin and I will be your host for today. Joining me on stage are my colleagues from the AFI team. We have Kristian, who is the product manager, Nathaniel, head of sales, and Benjamin, who is the product delivery manager. And before we start the session proper, for those of you who are new to AFI, the platform was introduced 8 years ago. It is an open platform with trusted, data-driven insights into the global uptake and developments of alternative fuels and technology across the maritime and energy value chains. So in, I think, about 35 minutes that we have, we will share insights into how the demand and supply for alternative fuels are evolving today, and followed by a concise walkthrough of how AFI can support you in navigating the energy transition through 2 case studies. Towards the end of the session, we have set aside some time for Q&A, but throughout the session, you can type your questions in the chat and we will try to get through as many as we can today. The team will also be supporting with your questions in the chat. So without further ado, let me pass the time to Nathaniel.
Perfect. Thank you, Maslin, and hi, everyone. I will start sharing my screen in a few seconds. And to reiterate a little bit on the agenda, firstly, I will share that on the screen in a moment. I will be providing you with a short insight on the global demand picture for the alternative fuels that we track on the Alternative Fuels Insight platform. And I will also jump into some of the supply landscape and how that is changing around from last year and moving into the few years ahead as well, looking into the supply picture. From there, we will move into a guided tour by Kristian Hammer in this call in a little bit later. He will do a deep dive on the data and what you can find underneath it when you start digging, in addition to some use cases that can be relevant to our typical customers, after which we will jump into the Q&A session. On the global demand, you will have seen some numbers already today if you followed along during the presentations provided by my colleagues on stage. We have, of course, a bit of a different picture when you look into the different statistics. We offer both gross tonnage overview when it comes to the order intake. We also offer a by number of vessel overview on order intake. And especially last year, we saw that a lot of the larger tonnage vessels were ordering alternative fuels capable vessels, dual fuel vessels mostly, whilst the numbers are still moderate on the number of vessels on a global basis. Some notable things did happen, however, in the year. We saw quite a few big container owners doing their first moves into the alternative fuel space with LNG new build orders being placed in 2025. We also saw that a lot of methanol vessels entered into the sailing fleet from last year, which was a big, almost a doubling of the tonnage sailing globally for methanol fuel. And for this year, looking into the order book, we see that there might even be more methanol fueled vessel or capable vessels entering the market compared to LNG fueled vessels. So it's quite an interesting picture when you look into the data and what's underneath. And I hope Kristian will provide you with some more context on that in a little bit. When it comes to the actual demand, we have done some scenarios where we look at what ifs. What if the fuel price was right, let's say, and the fuel capable fleet is running 100% on these fuels. So looking at the order book and considering them using only the alternative fuel that they are designed to handle, then what would be the theoretical demand signal sent to the fuel producers? And this is one such overview we have done. This was presented from our Maritime forecast in September. And you will see that we have quite a strong lead from the LNG fuel, of course, but it's split quite evenly between the LNG carriers and the LNG fuel fleet. And then from there, methanol is the second largest one in terms of market share coming from the energy demand side. And we have LPG, which is mainly driven by LPG carriers as well. And then ammonia and hydrogen lagging a little bit behind in the current overview. But you can see there's quite some demand already from this fleet, or the potential is there at least, and that's even excluding the biofuel drop-in options that are available to the ship owners. And we will, what we do as well on Alternative Fuels Insight is, of course, tracking these numbers and how they fluctuate over time in comparison to what is being offered from the supply side. So I will move into that end of the picture now. I will first start off with a global overview and how that translates to different regions. And then I will dive into more of the numbers in detail on ammonia and methanol. For the global production capacities, we see there's quite a big split between different regions, but we also see a high uptake of announced projects coming online in a few years' time. So even if we have had a modest start on a lot of the alternative fuels, this is an aggregate number across the different fuels that we track, meaning these will be sustainable fuels in accordance with the RED regulations. So we don't track LNG on this one, for example, but we do include LNG on the uptake side. And here you can see, of course, some regions having a lot of projects in the pipeline. Not all of these are announced projects, so not all of them are expected to enter into an investment decision and then going into operation. And even if they do, some of them might be delayed. But it gives you some idea of the volumes that are being spoken of and how they translate to the regions globally. Moving into the ammonia production, we do see quite a stark uptake on projects entering into operation from last year. So you can see the numbers from 2024 and moving into 2025, there is quite a lot of projects that matured and became operational already in last year. So that is a step change really from the historic picture of ammonia production globally. And bearing in mind, this is the sustainable production of ammonia, meaning we have a mix between blue projects and e-fuel projects. And in 2026, you can see that number is expected to increase a lot more as well. So here we are talking about quite big volumes being made available to the market. For the methanol production, there's been a steady increase year on year for quite some years, but we do see from the announced projects that a lot of them have received a final investment decision, and a lot of them are expected to become operational in 2026. So we expect a big change this year. Whilst you saw a big change for ammonia last year, we do expect a big change for methanol this year in terms of volumes being made available on a global market. And these are split, of course, between the three typical options we see on the methanol side, which is bio-based methanol, blue methanol, and e-methanol on the right-hand side. So these are the total capacities I have shown you now, not necessarily the capacities that are earmarked for maritime use. So that's also something to note, and I'm sure Kristian will guide you through that a little bit as well once he goes into some of the use cases of the data that we have on AFI. So with that, I will welcome to the stage Kristian Hammer as well, and he will take you through our platform and showcased on a high level here where we have our data sorted in different categories. We provide a global view on a map-based view. We provide detailed statistics reports and a fuel price mapper with historic pricing. So without further ado, I will stop sharing and Kristian will take over from here.
Thank you for the introduction, Nathaniel. So basically what I would like to take you through now for around 15 minutes is a market overview of how the market is moving when it comes to the supply of the different types of alternative fuels. How is the development of the bunker vessels taking place, and how does the demand actually look like? I will in this session also focus on two different use cases. One of them is how the ship owners use the data on the platform to support in decision makings and strategies that they make on their end. And also for the energy companies and fuel producers, how do this data that we have on the AFI platform become relevant for them when they want to sort of plan ahead? I'll start with an introduction of how this global views look like when it comes to the different types of alternative fuels. What you can see here on this picture is a bit crowded with data. We have this bubbles here with the sustainable fuel production volumes. We have the markers here for infrastructure in ports and also infrastructure for CCS. And you have the live position for all the vessels that are capable of operating on these different types of fuels and technologies. What we're going to focus on first is the actual availability of sustainable fuels. What you can see from the left-hand side here, you have a menu where we can drill down in different types of biofuels, e-fuels, biofuels, and where they are in the development stage. And what you can see now are all sustainable fuel production projects that are either in operation, have reached final investment decision, meaning decided, or they are under discussion, meaning that they are not yet reached in final investment decision. You have the blue color, which is hydrogen. The red color is ammonia. The yellow one is methanol, and the green one are sustainable biofuels. So by look of this picture, you can see that hydrogen and ammonia are having the large share of sustainable fuel production projects that are announced when it comes to volumes. However, majority of these are actually not yet reached final investment decisions, so there's some uncertainty to when they will come live. So if you then, for example, remove the under discussion here in the left-hand side, you're left with those in operation and final investment decision. And what you can see here is that the majority of the volumes are either methanol in yellow here, you have biofuels in green that are available today, and also some ammonia production projects and also hydrogen in Europe. If we then remove those that are decided as well, meaning that we are left with only those that are in operation today, you can see that it's almost only biofuels that are available at scale. This is mainly driven by the market availability in US, in Europe, and in Asia. Here it's also possible to click into all the different types of projects. So what you can see here is basically every specific project that are in operation today. You can see that there's a lot of hydrogen in Europe. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a high volume, because a lot of these are small-scale projects with the capacities, as you can see here, while the other ones for ammonia, biofuel, and methanol are of larger scale. It's also possible to click here and see what the actual offtake sector are, because this is not only for the maritime industry, it's also for other industries. So there's a competition for the fuels. That's important to be aware of. For offtake companies are known, that information is also announced, so it's easier for those who need this data to sort of know what to focus on and sort of understand the landscape for this. So this is basically how the picture looks today for the availability of sustainable fuel production projects. If you also add decided and in the discussion with a bit more vague color, you also find key information about these with links to where you can find more information about where the data comes from. I'll come back to this later. When it comes to the availability in ports, what you can see here is the full picture of the availability of methanol, ammonia. You also have hydrogen through infrastructure in terms of terminals here, and shore power marked with the lightning here. This basically shows availability in port. So what you can do here, if you again click on the left-hand side menu, we can then look at LNG, for example. You can see that LNG is well established across all major ports as an available means to be able to supply LNG as fuel. We have the markers here with the bunker vessels saying something about the bunker tank capacity, who are the operator, information like that. So this is a way to sort of get a good overview of what's available. It is also possible to filter on bunker vessel loading if you want to have truck loading facilities, if you want to have local storage only, tank to ship loading, and other means of loading for bunkering the vessels with LNG as fuel. LNG carriers are excluded. We also have information on that here if you include large-scale infrastructure, which is relevant for the LNG carriers. If you then look at methanol and ammonia, for example, you can see that by the first glance, it seems like it's available in majority of the ports. What you see here is typically local storage, saying something about the availability of methanol and ammonia for being shipped as a cargo. However, that says also something about the potential for infrastructure already being in place to future accommodate bunkering of the vessels, either by ship-to-ship transfer or by other means. And we know about majority of the methanol bunker supplying vessels are chemical tankers, which means that they can potentially take fuel from majority of the methanol terminals in the different ports, for example. Here it's also possible to filter on the different types of vessels. So if you have the bunker infrastructure, you can then see here in Singapore, for example, you have a lot of vessels that are able to supply methanol as fuel, and also the first ammonia bunker vessel that will come in a few years' time in 2028, serving the area around Singapore. So there's also information that can be found here, and we'll also come back to that later. In addition, we also have information on, I will not focus too much on that, on the CCS part. So you can also see the land-based facilities for CCS, saying something about the carbon that is involved for potential offloading of onboard carbon capture, if that should come to a large enough scale in the future to be able to connect to any of this land-based infrastructure, or as a carbon source potentially for creation of other types of sustainable alternative fuels. In addition, we also have overview of all vessels and where they are in operation today. So this is also information that we use to create the statistics and insights, saying something about where these vessels actually have been operating. When it comes to the vessel overview, so this is sort of how they looks like on a global map. If we look at the detail on each ship type, you can then see on this view here, let's see, how it looks like when it comes to comparing different types of alternative fuels for different types of ships. As Nathaniel presented earlier, you have the overview here of number of alternative fuel contracts made compared to conventional fuels. And as you can see, when looking at numbers, it's close to 15%, but looking at gross tonnage, it's getting closer to around 40% for alternative fuels. Meaning that especially the container vessels, as you can see here, is taking the large share of the gross tonnage that are equipped to operate on alternative fuels. Keeping in mind it's dual fuel, so they also operate on conventional fuels, but it gives you an idea about where the CO2 emission reduction potentially should come from in the future, based on how much they operate on the different types of alternative fuels. What you also can see from this view is how the different types of vessels are doing. So here we have the breakdown on the segments. So what you can see here, if you click, for example, the container vessels, you can then also see how that materialized into when the vessels will come in operation. So you can see here, for example, that there was a lot of deliveries in 2025, going from a small share to up to 55 container vessels, while in next year for methanol, it will jump from 55 to 140 methanol fuel vessels in operation. So that's a large jump. While for LNG, it's a smaller jump next year, but you can see that there's a large share of LNG fuel container vessels coming into the market in 27 and 28. So this exercise can also be done from different types of alternative fuels. And you can also click, if you click the bulk carriers, for example, you can then see how it looks for them. You can see they also have a large share of the ammonia, so 11 ammonia fueled bulk carriers, and quite evenly distributed between LNG and methanol, for example. If we look at the different types of fuels, we can click LNG here, and then you can see how it looks for different types of segments. So here you can see, for example, that container vessels are having a large share of LNG, while it's quite well distributed across the different types of segments. If you click methanol, for example, again, you see that the container vessels are having a large share, with also chemical tankers and bulk carriers having a fair share of the orders. While for ammonia, you can also see here that it's gas tankers that are having the largest share, and also a lot of the bulk carriers. What's interesting here is that you can see from 25 this year to throughout 26, it should jump from 3 vessels in operation to 25, meaning that there's a lot of expected orders for this year based on the contracts announcements. So it will be a large jump, which was also the case for methanol, having a really large jump in a number of orders. For hydrogen, on the other hand, you can then see that it's quite a lot of orders that are coming over the next 2 years, and it's quite evenly distributed among these different ship types here. What's worth mentioning, majority of this is fuel cell. So what's worth mentioning for the cruise vessels, for example, is that the majority of these, except one, do take the fuel as hotel load when in port, meaning that they don't have the full hydrogen fuel cell installation system fitted when it comes to fuel supply. So that's important to keep in mind. If we look at jump back to the map view again, a few use cases. If we look at the ship owner point of view, what they're often interested in when navigating the AFI platform is basically what fuel selection or alternative fuel technology should we use for our vessel, and when should we order these vessels with these types of technologies. And when navigating that, it's often important for them to understand how the bunkering infrastructure situation will look like, apart from prices, of course, but how the bunkering infrastructure will look like, when will there be supplies in ports where they actually are operating, and will there be enough production volumes of the sustainable fuels that they want to aim for when they actually plan to buy these fuels. So what they often do is that they go in here and they do have a look at what's available in ports. So for example, for LNG, it's easy. You have it established more or less at all key ports. While for methanol, for example, it looks a bit different. You have to navigate to see who are dedicated bunker vessel suppliers. You can see here for methanol, it's well established in Singapore when it comes to bunker vessels that have reported that they will be able to supply methanol as fuel. Ammonia, it's one here. You also have some facilities in Norway. Here will be the first barge, for example, coming with Asana. But you see that it's still a way to go before it's in operation when it comes to ammonia as bunkering. So this is information that the owners want to typically benchmark with. In addition, when it comes to the supply of fuels, they also want to see who are available in the market today. So basically, one thing is who are supplying fuel today, and what contracts can they make. If you take one project here, for example, you can see that there's already a lot of offtake companies in the market. Then you can also click and see what industry are they opting for. So here, for example, have industries, meaning not maritime fuels, as a sector where they have contracts for those in operation. This is also information that is relevant for the fuels to come. And if you also look, for example, on the bio-based versions of the fuels, it is also really relevant to see what the actual feedstocks for these types of fuels are. So that is information we have in the detailed insights report. So in that case, you will also be able to have a look at the CO2 emission factors for those. This is something that they often look at when they go into the detailed reports. For example, if you look at methanol in this case, it's possible to go in and have a look and navigate how the actual methanol production landscapes look like. Here you see that China are having a large share, while US on a good second when it comes to the volumes. And all this underlying data they can export to navigate and find more information on what companies to contact, what are the capacities, what feedstocks are they using, saying something about the CO2 emission factors, etc. So this is relevant information that they use. And we have that information also for hydrogen, ammonia, and biofuels. When it comes to energy companies, they, for example, would be interested in having a look at how the market is moving, who are ordering what contracts can they make, and what are the bunker vessel operators doing. So it's possible we have for technologies of fuels, and we have different types of fuels, options to see what owners are doing what, where are the vessels built, what segments are doing what. We also have a breakdown on what the actual demand will be if they are to operate on different types of fuel, and also tank capacities and other types of information. And this is something that we have across all different types of fuels. In addition, bunker vessels is also an important factor to navigate for both energy companies and ship owners. And there they're able to see what the actual home ports are. So if you, for example, select LNG, you will then see based on operation, this is live operation, that or close to 30% are operating in Asia, around 30% in Europe as well. And you have the home port listed as well in this overview with tank capacities for the bunker vessels. So this is information that are existing for all types of fuels. We also have one for ammonia in addition to those that you see in methanol here. That's a super quick walkthrough. I'm sure there's more questions in the chat potentially. So I think I would give the word to Benjamin to say something about what's cooking in the chat.
Thank you, Kristian. Sure, we have gotten a lot of interesting questions. I think we can start off with someone regarding liquid hydrogen. So we got one question regarding the development of liquefied hydrogen in infrastructure for the next decade. Do you want to touch on hydrogen infrastructure with basis of AFI?
Yes, we can say what we are tracking today on hydrogen. We know that a lot of the bunkering operations that are taking place today are truck loading. We have the fuel production projects here. You can see those. These are the ones that are having sustainable versions of hydrogen produced that is not going for ammonia production, but for production of hydrogen for industrial purposes and other purposes. When it comes to bunkering, we have 2 terminals available, one in Australia and one in Japan, saying something of the potential for hydrogen as shipping between different types of terminals. So there's a lot of development that is going, and there's also some time based on when the other types of infrastructure will come live. But this is the picture that you see today. What we also have is on the vessel side of things, we have the hydrogen fuel cell part, for example, where it's also possible to have a look at what the different types of vessels that are in operation today are doing. So here it's, for example, possible to see who are in operation today with fuel cells in use, who are in operation with fuel cell under testing, meaning that they're not yet in commercial operation, and you have those in order. In the breakdown list here, it's possible to find information about when and how they actually do bunkering operation, and whether it's by truck loading and other insights than that. So this is information that we have, but to explain it over the next decade, that will be an ask that is not what we focus on AFI, because we focus on facts and contracts, and we don't do forecasts and predictions on how it will look beyond data. But we could book a demo session with you and talk a bit more with some of our hydrogen expert to deep dive into that if of interest.
Mm-hmm. I think one final question for me as I see time flies by. Now that the viewers have gotten a very good introduction into AFI, so once they're kind of ready to explore the solution on their own, how should they proceed?
The short and sweet answer would be you see the link here, afi.dnv.com. If you click that one, you will be taken to a landing page that looks like this. It will pop up anytime soon, where you just request free access. And then you register on the Veracity platform, hosting this platform, and you will be able to play around with the content that you see on the platform. And it's also possible to book a demo session with us through this button. And then we set aside a 30-minute session where we have more time to deep dive into questions you have and answer the trends in markets and other things as well.
Mm. And to really get the full benefit from AFI, of course, there's the paid subscriptions. Maybe you can do just a quick demo of the subscription plans and quickly say what they include.
We can do that. Do you want to take that one, Nathaniel? While
I can do if you show it for me. There we go. So we definitely try to package it in easy to understand packages. And the first one is a light touch, where you basically you subscribe to one of our insight reports. That could be the fuel cell report that Kristian just entered for you. It could be any of the other uptake reports or fuel production reports. And then if you want more of a complete picture, the analyst package will either provide you with the fuel production data or the vessel uptake data. So you split basically the content in half, and you pick which side you'd like to look into the most. And then the advanced package is for the full data set across the fuel production and the ship uptake. So that is, in a nutshell, our data plans. These are per user subscription. So if you want a team access and you have different needs than that, then we have kind of this customized package in the end, where you contact us and we figure out what makes sense for your organization.
Okay. Thank you, Kristian and Nathaniel. I think that was all we managed to cover in this Q&A session.
Thank you all, and also thank you to all the audience for joining us. Of course, there were many questions in the chat, and we have tried to reply as many as we can as well. But of course, as the team has mentioned earlier, you can always book a demo with us to go through the platform in greater detail and to ask as many questions as you want. Before we say goodbye, you will also be receiving a link to the recordings in the coming days. And yes, just feel free to get in touch with us anytime. With that, I wish you all a good day, good evening, or good night, wherever you are.